She didn't wake up one morning and stop loving you. That's the lie that keeps you confused at night. The truth is far more uncomfortable, and once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. I'm going to speak to you as a psychologist, not to shame you, but to tell you what most men never hear until it's already too late. When women leave while they still love you, it's not because love disappeared, it's because love became painful. And the female brain will always choose emotional safety over emotional attachment, even when the attachment is deep. Here's the first truth men struggle with. Love is not what keeps a woman bonded long term. Emotional regulation does. A woman can love you intensely and still feel emotionally unsafe with you. Unsafe doesn't mean abusive. It means unpredictable. It means she never knows if she'll be heard, dismissed, corrected, ignored, or misunderstood. Over time, her nervous system learns that loving you costs her peace. Men often think relationships end after a big fight. Women leave after thousands of small moments where they swallowed words. When she says, "It's fine," her brain is already recording emotional debt. Each time she lowers her expectations, each time she explains her feelings and feels unseen, her attachment quietly weakens. Not because she wants it to, but because her mind is protecting her. Here's something no one tells you. Women don't detach suddenly. They detach privately. By the time you feel the distance, she has already grieved the relationship while still inside it. She cried next to you. She begged subtly. She tried being softer, then quieter, then numb. What you experienced as calm was actually resignation. Men assume love should be enough. But love without emotional attunement feels like loneliness to a woman. She can be lying next to you and still feel unseen. And the female psyche experiences prolonged emotional loneliness as a threat. When that happens, her body starts pulling away before her heart does. This is where most men misread the situation. When she becomes less reactive, less needy, less expressive, you think things are improving. In reality, she's conserving energy. She's stopped trying to be understood. That's not maturity. That's emotional withdrawal. And once a woman stops emotionally reaching for you, the relationship is already on borrowed time. Women don't leave because they stopped loving you. They leave because staying started costing them their identity, their voice, their nervous system stability. Love doesn't disappear. It becomes buried under self-protection. If you're listening to this and thinking about someone who slowly changed, became distant, less emotional, less present, understand this. The leaving began long before the goodbye. And if you don't understand this mechanism, you'll keep repeating the same pattern with different faces, wondering why the ending always feels the same. At the end of this video, I'll ask you something personal. For now, sit with this question quietly. Were you focused on keeping her or on understanding her? Here's the second truth, and this is where many men feel exposed. Women don't leave because you failed to love them. They leave because they felt alone while being loved. That distinction matters more than you realize. A woman measures connection through emotional responsiveness, not intention. You may have provided, protected, stayed loyal, stayed present physically, but her brain is scanning for something else entirely: emotional availability. When she speaks, does she feel felt? When she's upset, does she feel safe expressing it without being minimized, fixed, or corrected? When she shares something vulnerable, does it land or does it bounce off you? Men are trained to solve problems. Women are wired to process emotions. When a man responds to emotional pain with logic, solutions, or defensiveness, the woman's nervous system reads it as distance, not cruelty, distance. Over time, distance erodes desire more than conflict ever could. This is where many relationships quietly fracture. She brings an emotion, you bring a solution. She needed understanding, you offered efficiency. And every time that happens, her brain associates emotional expression with disappointment. Eventually, she stops bringing emotions at all. That silence feels peaceful to you. To her, it feels like abandonment. Another uncomfortable truth: women leave when they feel emotionally unseen, not when they feel unloved. Love without attunement feels transactional, like affection is conditional on her being easy, agreeable, low maintenance. When a woman senses she has to shrink her emotions to keep the relationship stable, her sense of self begins to erode. And no woman can stay where she cannot fully exist. Men often ask, why didn't she just tell me? She did, just not in the way men expect. She told you through tone changes, repeated conversations, emotional reactions, and eventually withdrawal. Women communicate emotionally first, verbally second. By the time she uses direct language, she's already exhausted. Here's something critical. When a woman stops arguing, she's not choosing peace. She's choosing closure. Arguments mean she still believes change is possible. Silence means she stopped hoping, and hope is the final thread holding love in place. The female brain bonds through emotional safety. If being honest creates tension, defensiveness, or disconnection, her brain adapts by disengaging. That disengagement doesn't feel dramatic. It feels calm, clear, final. That's why her leaving feels sudden to you and inevitable to her. You might think she gave up too easily. In reality, she stayed longer than her nervous system wanted her to. Women don't leave at the first sign of pain. They leave when the pain becomes predictable. And here's the hardest part to accept. By the time she walks away, she's not angry. She's resolved. Anger means attachment. Calm means detachment. When she says she still loves you but can't stay, believe her. Love isn't the problem. Emotional sustainability is. This is not about blaming men. It's about understanding a dynamic that repeats when awareness is missing. If you don't learn to recognize emotional withdrawal early, you'll keep thinking love fades on its own. It doesn't. It shuts down to survive. Sit with this quietly before we continue. When she expressed emotions, did you listen to understand or listen to respond? Now we move into the part almost no man is taught, yet it decides everything. Women don't leave when they feel hurt. They leave when they feel emotionally unsafe being honest about the hurt. That shift is subtle, and once it happens, love no longer has room to breathe. Emotional safety isn't about agreeing with her. It's about regulating yourself when she's emotional. The female nervous system is constantly reading your reactions, your tone, your body language, your defensiveness, your withdrawal. When she senses that her emotions trigger irritation, shutdown, or correction in you, her brain learns a simple rule: vulnerability costs connection. And when vulnerability costs connection, she stops being vulnerable. Many men don't realize how often they unintentionally train women to self-silence. A sigh when she talks too long, a joke that minimizes her feelings, a logical explanation when she wanted empathy. None of these are malicious, but the female psyche doesn't measure intent. It measures impact, and the impact accumulates. Here's what happens internally. She starts rehearsing conversations in her head and deciding not to have them. She tells herself, "It's not worth it." That sentence is the beginning of the end. When a woman stops believing it's worth explaining herself, she's already emotionally packing her bags. Men often believe stability comes from calmness. Women experience stability through emotional flow. When emotions are welcomed, the relationship feels alive. When emotions are contained, suppressed, or avoided, the relationship feels sterile. Safety for a woman doesn't mean no conflict. It means conflict doesn't threaten connection. This is where resentment quietly replaces desire. Resentment isn't explosive. It's numbing. Desire requires emotional presence. Resentment drains it. She might still care about you deeply, still feel affection, still remember who you were together. But attraction cannot survive where emotional expression feels risky. Another hard truth: women often leave relationships that look good on paper. You were loyal, you were consistent, you didn't cheat, you didn't disappear. But emotional intimacy isn't built on behavior alone. It's built on attunement. And without attunement, the relationship becomes emotionally lonely. From the outside, it looks irrational. From the inside, it feels inevitable. She didn't leave because she didn't try. She left because trying stopped changing anything. And when effort stops producing emotional return, the brain stops investing. Men sometimes say, "She changed." She did, but not randomly. She adapted. She learned how to survive emotionally in a dynamic that wasn't meeting her needs. And eventually, survival required distance. Here's something most men don't expect. When a woman leaves while still loving you, she's not chasing someone else. She's choosing herself. She's choosing nervous system regulation over emotional chaos. She's choosing peace over potential. And once that choice is made, love doesn't pull her back. Because returning would mean returning to the version of herself that felt unseen. No amount of promises can undo that unless deep awareness changes behavior consistently. This is why last-minute effort often fails. You're responding to her leaving, not to the years of emotional data her brain has already collected, and her brain trusts patterns, not words. As we move toward the end, understand this: women don't leave relationships. They leave emotional environments that no longer feel safe to exist in. And love, no matter how real, cannot survive where the self feels threatened. This is the final truth, and it's the one that separates men who repeat the same loss from men who evolve. Women don't leave because they stopped loving you. They leave because they stopped believing the relationship could be emotionally repaired without losing themselves. By the time she goes, her decision isn't impulsive, it's neurologically settled. Her nervous system has already adjusted to life without emotional reliance on you. That's why her calm feels cold. That's why her tears are gone. The grief already happened in private. What you see at the end is not heartbreak. It's relief mixed with sadness. Many men try to win her back with intensity, promises, realizations, declarations of love. But intensity doesn't rebuild emotional safety. Consistency does. And consistency only matters when it arrives early, not when it's forced by loss. The female brain doesn't reopen once it is closed for self-protection. It observes, it waits, and often it decides not to risk reopening at all. This is where growth actually begins, if you're willing to let it. The lesson isn't how to keep a woman from leaving. The lesson is how to become the kind of man a woman doesn't emotionally have to leave to save herself. That requires something deeper than effort. It requires awareness. Awareness of how you respond when emotions are inconvenient. Awareness of whether you listen to understand or listen to defend. Awareness of how safe people feel being fully human around you. Because women don't bond to words. They bond to emotional experiences repeated over time. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, how do I keep her? Start asking, how do I regulate myself so connection feels safe? When a man can stay grounded while emotions move through the room, a woman relaxes. When she relaxes, she stays open. When she stays open, love has space to grow instead of contract. This isn't about perfection. Women don't need flawless men. They need emotionally present ones. Men who can say, I hear you, without fixing. Men who can tolerate discomfort without withdrawing. Men who understand that emotional leadership isn't dominance, it's steadiness. If you've lost someone who still loved you, don't numb that pain. Study it. Let it sharpen your self-awareness instead of hardening your heart. The goal isn't to avoid pain. The goal is to learn what pain is trying to teach you before it repeats itself. And if you're still in a relationship, take this seriously. Don't wait for distance to become obvious. Emotional withdrawal is quiet. By the time it's loud, it's late. Ask questions. Listen without preparing rebuttals. Create safety, not by controlling outcomes, but by being emotionally trustworthy. Women don't want to leave men they love. Leaving hurts them too. But staying where they feel unseen hurts more. When forced to choose, they choose themselves. Always. So here's the personal question I want you to answer honestly, not for me, but for yourself. In your last relationship or your current one, were you someone she could emotionally rest with or someone she had to emotionally brace against? Write your answer in the comments. If this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs to hear what most men never get told until it's too late.